All right. Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Casey Conlon. I'm the Library Sustainability Coordinator at the Mid-Hudson Library System, and welcome to our first webinar in our Reimagining Library Services series. In this webinar, we're going to talk about libraries that are addressing hunger and food scarcity in their communities. We were inspired to create the Reimagining Library Services series by all the work that we've seen our libraries doing in the Mid-Hudson Library System to address needs that we may not have known or even issues before or needs before, or to find new ways to address needs that we were previously meeting in different ways. So many of our libraries, we are eager to help our community, and we're leaders in our community, and we're always looking out for ways and places that we can help more. So the libraries that we have joining us today, they saw that there was an issue in their community, or they had previously been working on this issue of hunger and food scarcity and the availability of food. And they worked through their connections, their partnerships that they're so good at building, and they found ways to address those needs. So we want to highlight today some of the work that's being done in some of our libraries. We have Rhiannon Leo Jameson from the Northeast Millerton Library, and she's going to tell us about some of the work that they're doing to give people groceries and other necessities that they're getting through curbside. Carol is going to tell us also about a food pickup program that they're doing at the Kent Library. Sandy Bartlett is coming from the Rhinecliff Library, the Morton Memorial Library in Rhinecliff, and they have a really amazing program where they're talking about resilience and actually getting food from people's backyards and garden plots to their tables. And then Liz and Giese are going to team up to tell us about what's going on to address food scarcity in the northern Ulster area of our service area. So I'm really excited, and I want to welcome everybody for coming today, and I thank you very much to all our panelists who come. We're going to get in and we're going to start talking about some of the work that we've seen libraries doing out there. First, we just want to do a quick overview of a library who's not here today. Dee Dee at the Putnam Valley Library. She wasn't able to join us today because she is on a much deserved vacation, as many of our library staff. I encourage you to take your vacation when you get a chance. It's been quite a year of us trying to deal with so many issues out in the community. As we go through the webinar, if you have questions, you can use the question box or the chat box to ask us any questions. And we have time at the end for questions, but you can feel free to ask them as we go through. We'll make sure we get to them. And if we can't get to them today, we'll get to them after. We'll follow up with you. So at the Putnam Valley Library, they had been working on food scarcity using their tiny food pantry, which was originally just a small cabinet that was raccoon proof. And it was kept on their covered porch, which is right in front of their library. And so this was a self-serve option for people to get shelf-stable and non-perishable kinds of foods. And people would come up whenever they needed to. They didn't have to talk to anybody, and they could grab what they needed or what they thought that they needed. Initially, this was something the library had provided a little bit of food out here, and then it took off. And if you look at their Facebook page where they post about these things, you can see that the community is eager to be part of this and eager to support this effort. So you can actually see that, initially it might have been an ante from the library to get this going, but once people saw that the library was able to help people in this way and that they could also contribute, they wanted to be part of this as well. So the staff has a little bit of input on this one, or a little bit of work that they do on this one, in that they periodically restock the tiny food pantry, and they don't put everything out that they have, lest it get cleaned out really quickly, like at a Halloween trick-or-treat kind of bowl out front event. The second program that they're doing actually has fresh produce, fresh right from the back of the library there, produce that goes to folks. It's a garden basket program, and library patrons can actually register to receive a basket of vegetables from the library garden. The library garden is tended by library staff and library trustees who have some time that they can put in to actually taking care of the garden, harvesting these things. And they put together, based on what's available, they put together baskets that people can come and pick up at scheduled times. People have to do a little bit of registration so the library can divvy up what's coming out of the garden. The plan for this is to use the garden at some point in the future when there may not be need for this particular service through the garden baskets, is to use it for programming in the future. And finally, the library had partnered with the Food Bank of the Hudson Valley, and they do something called the Family Lunch Staples. And you'll see a couple of the library staff here. They're using their programming space, which can't be used currently because of the restrictions of COVID-19. And so they're actually having people come in and access all different kinds of things like milk, cheese, bread, fruit, and more that comes from the Food Bank of the Hudson Valley, which is provided through a number of different sources as part of a program from the New York State governor. And so families can make an appointment and they can come to this program and they can pick out 20 items, almost like a little shopping visit from the library as part of this program. So these are a few things that Putnam Valley was doing. And so we're going to look at some of the libraries. We're going to start with Reimagining in Northeast Millerton in just a minute. But it's important to remember that your library, every library is unique. Some of the problems may be similar. Some of the ways that you can meet those problems may be similar, but they can also be as varied as your communities are. And that's what makes your library and all our libraries such a powerful tool for our communities. I don't know if you've heard me say it before or other folks say it, but libraries are the Swiss Army knives of their community. And this is a perfect example of that. It's not all the time that the library community room is used to actually provide food for people, but here we are, there's an issue, it needs to be addressed. People need food, and look at this. Now the library community room is suddenly feeding families. So, you know, the fact that we have all of these libraries who are situated in their individual communities means that all of these communities have a source to actually help them address many different kinds of needs. In this case, we're going to talk about food scarcity. So Rhiannon, if it's okay, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what y'all were doing at the Northeast Millerton Library. So I wanted to ask, how did you know that food scarcity was an issue for your community?
The government shut down, that's when we first noticed there was going to be a problem. A lot of our families either work for schools and or work for the local hospitals government. So with that loss of income or SNAP benefits and support benefits, we saw that there was going to be a need. Then we did a fundraiser, food drive for our local pantry. But this time we decided to turn our tiny library into a tiny pantry in the park.
Okay, so the government shutdown that happened last year, that was when this need became apparent to you at the library and folks at the library?
It was always there, but that's when we realized that the help that our patrons may need may not be there to get them through the rough patch,
Okay,
unfortunately.
okay. Um, Are there, you know, as you thought about, you know, addressing this need, were there other organizations in your community who are already working on this issue?
Besides our emergency food pantry in town, our local community center around the same time started developing a food pantry, which they're doing a kit process where you order something online and they put it together for you and they deliver it or you pick it up, as well as fresh food. So once we found out that they were doing that, we started to transition our tiny library pantry and the pickup service to offer more things that weren't covered by SNAP benefits, like toilet paper, shampoos, razors, things of that nature.
Okay, all right. So that's what the library is working on then. The community center has the food stuff covered, but the library is working on all the other stuff.
Have some food, but we're starting to transition a little bit. Some of our patrons are still depending upon us for some food staples like sugar and pasta and soups and things like that. But we noticed there's our non-SNAP covered benefits are going a lot faster than our food.
Okay, all right. And so where does that stuff come from that you're distributing to folks?
We were going to partner with our local community center and the other local pantries. We were able to purchase more items. We're originally it was just ordering from Amazon, and then that became less reliable. But as certain things like toilet paper and paper towels came back in stock to the general public, we were able to order them through not only the vendors that the pantries are using, but things like WB Mason and like that, because we're able to order them in bulk and cheaper than we would otherwise.
Okay.
You,
And I'm sorry, go on.
oh, you just be surprised what like office supply companies actually sell. We were able to find bulk razors, toothbrushes, toothpaste. It's kind of strange, but great.
Huh. Yeah, no, I wouldn't have thought they had razors at the office supply company. Definitely. So where does the funding come from to purchase those items?
Initially, it was donations, but our children's program coordinator was able to find a grant through the Foundation of Community Health in Connecticut that is pretty much funding it solely for the summer, which is wonderful. It was $3,500, and we have almost $1,000 left still, so it's going a long way.
Wow, that is cool. That's a cool grant. Um, are you working with the other organizations in town closely, or are you just kind of watching what they're doing, or?
We're starting to work with them more closely. They actually, I was surprised, they have meetings of all the local pantries every other month to talk about the different things that they're seeing, the need going up, the need going down, what problems they're all addressing, so they can try to come together and deal with them rather than trying to figure it out on their own.
All right, so there's a group of folks who are working together then?
Yeah. The area pantries, not only the community center, but the surrounding towns now all meet over Zoom to talk about what they're seeing and if they can find different things that they need.
Okay. And so you mentioned the tiny food pantry earlier.
Yep.
Is that how does the tiny food pantry work, or when did you start that?
It originally was a tiny free library, and at the beginning of the pandemic, our children's librarian saw that um, another community who was affected before us had started doing that. And we thought that's a fantastic idea. We're not able to be at the library right now. This is some way that we can help our community and not be in the building. So we almost immediately took things out of our own pantry, started filling them up and posting pictures online to show the community that what we were offering and to encourage them to fill it. And immediately we were getting packages in the mail of food. People were keeping it stacked. For the first month or two, we couldn't go more than 2 days without it being completely emptied out. So it was mind-boggling. Like our my entire car was filled with food. So we just come in every other week when I'd come get the mail and just fill it back up again, and almost immediately it was gone.
Oh, wow. And that stuff was coming from donations from folks because they had seen what you were doing?
That was coming from donations, and that's when we realized this is a bigger problem than we thought. And she started to look for grants for us, and from that point on, we were getting donations for the community and grants as well.
Okay.
And the grants.
And how did those folks who were donating, how did they find out that you were doing that? Or how did they
Social
find out about
media,
the food pantry?
social media, newsletters. Is unfortunately the only way we were able to communicate with our patrons at that time. But luckily, everyone was online and they were looking. So
Okay, so you put up a post about the food pantry and the work you were doing there, and some folks saw it and they picked up on it and they reached out to you, or?
we provided all the information they need. We had everything in our newsletter, and we just linked back to the newsletter or to our website. So they, almost immediately, we didn't even have to talk to people. It was coming in. We ran into an issue that the library doesn't get street delivery. We weren't there to pick up packages. So the local bookstore was allowing us to have Amazon packages delivered to their building, which I felt awful about, but they were able to help support the community that way as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oblong's a very good business. If you need to buy new books, go there.
All right, so that is a good partnership. Somebody who can pick up the stuff when you're not able to pick it up. Um, can you tell me? This doesn't look like the little food pantry in these pictures that you sent me. What's going on in the two pictures that we have here?
That's what we've kind of transitioned to because we realized there's more that we could do that could fit in the tiny library. So we call it the tiny free grocery. We're fortunate enough to have it upstairs that isn't accessible to the community, but has storage space. I'm actually sitting in it right now, so I could show you. We we ordered um, tons of items, toilet paper, things of that nature, and the donations that were coming in, put them up here. We have a website where patrons can log on and select the food they need. Everything is photographed, so it's not language dependent. They see exactly what they're getting and how much. If someone doesn't have the internet at home or isn't comfortable using it, they could do it here or just call us and tell us what they're looking for, and we'll tell them what we have, what's available, make the list out, go upstairs, pull the items, and then bring them back out and put them with our contactless pickup. So unless you see 4 or 5 bags from the same person, you have no idea what's inside them. It could be books, it could be food, you don't know. So
Okay.
it's, you don't have to worry about potentially being embarrassed by your neighbors knowing that you're picking up food from the pantry.
Okay, that's cool. So that sounds pretty interesting. So people actually, you put up pictures of the things that you can get, and people select that way online.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just a simple Google form. The initially taking the picture is a little time consuming, but you tend to order the same items over and over again. So once you run out, you just take the picture down, put it back up when you get the order back in. We were fortunate enough to have a summer intern this year, so that's her filling out the orders for the day, in the picture to the left.
Okay.
So yeah, it's working very well, and it's able to keep statistics to what people are using without us having to duplicate any documents or anything. It's all
Ah,
right there.
that is smart. I didn't even think of that, that you would have a spreadsheet there on the back end that would sort of tell you everything that you've been doing. Wow,
Yep.
that's cool. Um, what kind of response have you had from people who have taken advantage of the program?
We've gotten a very good response. Initially, when we talked, I think we were up to 20 pickups, but now we're up to around 50. We've already had 3 today. You definitely see the ebb and flow of traffic. The beginning and the end of the month is busier than the middle. But the community has been great. We have patrons that are now making masks and selling them and giving the proceeds to us so we can buy more food. So
Whoa.
that is wonderful. Yeah. Again, today people are starting to donate more again because we've put the word out that we're running low on items and they're starting to come in again, which is wonderful.
Okay, so you have kind of a following then, where
Yeah,
people are looking out for what folks need.
yeah. And I think everyone just feels kind of powerless. And this kind of gives them something to do without putting their health at risk and be able to help in some way. So it's kind of nice to come together around something.
Huh, cool. Is there anything on the about the program that we didn't cover that you think folks should know?
It is, if you plan to go our route, it can be time consuming at first, but after you get things running and get used to the flow of things, it's not any more work than your normal day-to-day library filling holds, paging items. Hopefully you don't have your stuff upstairs like we do, because things get heavy, but it's been surprisingly easy to keep up once we were able to get it started.
Okay, cool. All right, well, thank you very much, Rhiannon. If anybody has any questions, again, you can pop them in the question box and we'll try to get to them a little bit later in the webinar. And we can also follow up if we're not able to answer them today. Next up, I wanted to talk to Carol Donick at the Kent Public Library. So Carol, this is a picture from your library. Who are we looking at in this picture? It looks like some people sorting food.
Yeah, we're looking at our volunteer, Morgan, who was at loose ends over the summer. She's starting college. And Eric, our youth services librarian, and they are sorting food. We received several deliveries from Food Bank of the Hudson Valley, and they would even provide us with menus so that when we were putting together a bag, it would have some vegetables and some cereal and some fruit and, you know, a balanced diet. And so they are opening up the cartons, putting together bags with a, you know, balanced assortment of food. And we made them available through curbside pickup. So right around the time in June when we started curbside pickup, We also started our family grocery program. So in the same way they signed up to pick up books, they could sign up to pick up a couple of bags of groceries once a week.
Okay. And so, how do they sign up? Do you all have like a call-in system, or do you have an app, or how do people register or pick out a time when they can pick up food or
We use
groceries?
the same software that we're using for curbside pickup. It's called My Libro,
Hmm.
and it's possible to do it online, or to be honest, most people would call the library and say, I'd like a food pickup, and we'd say, oh, what day and time would be most convenient for you, and we'd put it right on the schedule. And exactly the same way we did with book pickups.
Okay. So is that hard for the staff, or did that make it a little bit easier that you were using the same kind of program or same kind of procedure to have to share food as to share books and other materials?
I think it was pretty easy. We just clearly marked the ones that were food so that we weren't searching around for books to take out when it was bags of food to take out, and it worked very smoothly.
I guess that would be a surprise if you showed up to get some oranges and some cereal and you got like a romance novel or something. Did that happen to anybody?
No, it didn't. We always warn people. We said your name will be on the bag. Look at the bag to make sure that you get the right one.
Okay.
So,
All right.
and from the beginning with curbside pickup, I had expected that there would be confusion with people taking home the wrong bag, and knock wood, so far it hasn't happened.
All right. Is this your first time working to address food security and food scarcity in Kent?
No, for about the past 3 years, we were part of the Food Bank of the Hudson Valley's summer lunch program. So either once or twice a week, uh, we would have a time set up where children could come with their parent or caregiver. We would give them a little brown paper bag and a carton of milk, and they would eat lunch at the library. This is a program to help those children whose most nutritious meal during the school year is eaten at school, and then in summer you want to fill in some way or other. Um, to be honest, we were happy to do it, but the numbers were never that big of children coming for the lunch. Partly transportation, I'm not sure exactly why. It was one of those things that we liked doing, and we helped some children, but it probably wasn't, a big thing. We got a call from Food Bank of the Hudson Valley in May, and they were asked if we would be interested in partnering with them, and we said, oh, we'd love to, but I'm not sure how the children can eat food in the library right now. And they said, oh, well, maybe you could just distribute the food outside of the library. And we said, great, we're going to be doing curbside pickup. Could we do curbside food pickup? And they said yes. And so instead of giving away about 15 little brown paper bags with one lunch in it, we were giving out per week about 20 big shopping bags. Most people, it was usually 2 bags worth of food to help the community.
Wow, so that's a lot more food distributed than you were previously, it sounds like.
Yeah, a lot more. But it went very smoothly.
Okay. Is there any requirement from your partner or from the library for people to prove that they have some kind of financial hardship or that they're in need of the food?
No, thank goodness. We asked them, they said they'd like the target audience to be families with children. So we advertised it as a family grocery program and said that that was our target, families with children who were experiencing food insecurity or hard times. But I asked, well, do they have to prove that they have children? No. So I said, if somebody says, well, you know, I lost my job and I could really use some food, but I don't have children, we can give them the food. Yes. Do they have to prove economic need in any way? No. Thank goodness we didn't have to look at income tax returns or anything like that. All we had to do was the person ask for the food and set up a time when they would like to pick it up. So from that point of view, it was very easy. One thing that we did find was that definitely some of the people who picked up the food were elderly people who also have been having a difficult time with the COVID, and among other things, they appreciated being able to just pick up a bag of food behind the library and not having to go into a grocery store.
Okay, all right, so it was a little bit safer, a little bit less risk picking up the food outside?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody else in Kent who is trying to work on this issue? Any other organizations?
We have food pantries in the area, and some of the churches have done food drives where they collect food and then give it away on a particular day. So there are definitely other people and organizations working on this problem.
Okay, and so how does the library fit in if there's other folks already doing this work? It sounds like there's a demand.
Yeah. Well, I guess what we had is we had an established relationship with the Food Bank of the Hudson Valley, which are a wonderful organization. And we had the setup that people could schedule a time to pick up food. We were at the library at scheduled hours and could handle in a smooth manner the distribution of the food.
Okay, cool. What has the community's response been to the library doing this work?
It's been positive. We've had many people thank us, the people when they're picking up the food. My board has been supportive. I have not yet had anyone criticize it or say you shouldn't be doing this.
Okay, all right. And do people make donations to the program at all in any way?
No, we haven't. The one way that we did, we have one gentleman who always donates towards our summer reading program. And this year, we didn't want to give out the little, plastic whistles and things like that we've given out in many years with summer reading. And so we talked to him and we worked out a situation where his donation will go to Food Bank of the Hudson Valley, and we're encouraging children in their reading that we've told them that, if they reach a certain goal, a certain amount of money will go to Food Bank of the Hudson Valley. We're a little vague about the details, but basically this gentleman has donated money that will be going to Food Bank of the Hudson Library from the library.
Cool. So did the kids read enough books to get the donation?
Well, they didn't actually meet the original goal that we set, but the donation's going to happen anyway.
That's very kind. The one other thing I want to ask is I thought it was pretty interesting. Food Bank of the Hudson Valley, they provide you with guidance on creating a menu for this program or for the food that you distribute?
Yes, when they would show up with cartons of food of various kinds, usually enough for 3 or 4 weeks, and they would give us a printout, and they were always very nice. They said, this is just a suggestion. You can change it, Carol, if you want to, but it would be a printout saying week 1, this kind of cereal, peanut butter, jelly, bread, oranges, so that with each week it was a sort of a balanced diet of food. We didn't give out all the cereal one week and all the spaghetti sauce the next week. So
Okay, all right. Okay. Um, so that's good. Carol, I really appreciate you joining us today and sharing this. Next, I wanted to talk to Sandy. Sandy, are you available to tell us a little bit about your program and the work that you're doing in your community to address this issue?
I am happy to give it a whirl.
Thank you, Sandy. So is this your first time working on food scarcity in your community, or is this something that y'all have been doing for a while?
It's pretty much the first time we've done a more serious action toward this. We had back in 2012, Susan Totter of Dover Plains had set up a food fight. Different, I think 14 libraries from the Mid-Hudson library system had gotten together and collected food, and the friendly competition. What was it? 15 libraries with collecting over 4,000 items.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of a big push back then, and so periodically we've done little food drives, but I guess it was mid-June, in partnership with Backyard to Table, we started collecting produce that people had grown in their gardens, and realized when we were saying, oh, come and drop off your produce, that we had several people saying, oh, can we come here and get produce? And we said, no, 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 we're not doing that, but here's all the information for the 2 food pantries in Rhinebeck. So that we started coordinating with them
Okay.
back in June.
So who are the folks behind Backyard to Table, and what's Backyard to Table?
Backyard to Table, it's actually sort of the brainchild of a former board member and neighbor, and it's a sort of an organization that they sponsor our sustainability events, and they support sort of resilience and sustainability in all ways. So I'm trying to, somewhere I've got a nice little write-up about them. They promote local food resilience and sustainability in the Mid-Hudson Valley through garden builds and hands-on education. And last year they did gleaning. So if you were away on vacation and you had a garden, I say we because I'm also part of that, people would go and water your garden, harvest things, and then take the harvest to the food pantries. So couldn't do that this year because of COVID. So that's why the library then became a drop-off spot. So that's Backyard to Table, and they're just fantastic partners.
Okay, so these are people who are working on sustainability and resilience issues in the community, and they said, hey, I think the library would be a good partner in this.
Exactly. We're a sort of what both Carol and Rhiannon said, we're a central spot. People know us. They know they can, we're open open curbside at certain times. So that there's a set spot. So that's how we worked out that we would be a good partner in this endeavor.
Okay, so you all take the veggies, you're open more than the food pantries, it sounds like, so you all can accept the veggies and then you bring them to one of the 2 food pantries or both the food pantries?
Yes, we do it to both of them. And we have certain days that for drop-offs for the produce, so that the one food pantry has a Saturday pickup, so we have a Friday drop-off, and then one has a Tuesday pickup, so we have a Monday drop-off.
Oh,
Since
cool.
produce doesn't, perishables, that's fine. People can drop those off anytime, but the produce, we would like it to have it fresh for everybody. So that's why we have separate days for that.
Okay, and you said the produce comes from people's gardens, like people's backyard gardens?
We have a mixture, yes. People's backyard gardens, then also the community garden where the library has a plot for our seed library. They this year decided to set aside several plots to grow specifically for the food pantry. So I think there are, if I'm not mistaken, I think there are 6 plots that everything that's grown there goes to the food pantry. Plus there's a promotion for other people at the community garden to donate their extra produce. Because let's face it, sometimes you just don't need that many tomatoes. So
Yeah, I think it's a
and
cool idea. I know we definitely had a lot of zucchini, and I don't know what we ended up doing. I ate a lot of it, but I can only eat so much zucchini.
exactly.
Um, so that's pretty cool. So early on, folks in the community or the library, did they see that food scarcity was going to be an issue this year, and that, you know, people are going to be struggling with, you know, finding enough food
Yes.
given COVID?
Yes, and I will admit, following social media and other libraries, when I saw the idea of the little food pantries, I thought that just seemed like a brilliant idea, and it didn't quite work with ours. But the fact that we could do a drop-off point, be a drop-off point, it's one of those, okay, we can do our bit this way. But it was, I again, thanks to everybody else and following your leads. It seemed like a grand idea.
Well, I think that, you know, it sort of speaks to that, you know, every community is different, and how you do things and how you can set things up is going to be different no matter where you are. And I think it's really cool that you came up with this way to provide people with food. It's definitely unique, and I think it's a really cool idea.
But I also just sort of continuing on with that, we did decide for the Great Give Back to make sure that, I think Tom Lawrence had brought up the fact that food scarcity, and so it seemed like a no-brainer to our part of the Great Give Back. One of the things we're doing is a food drive. So
Okay.
we're keeping going with that.
All right. Is there anything else around this issue that you found or that you think folks should know about, you know, trying to do this at your library?
Honestly, I think everybody should. It doesn't, as everybody else has been saying, it doesn't take that much more effort than our work with books and DVDs, and it's perhaps even more helpful. So I think everybody should, in their own fashion, feel that it's quite a feasible endeavor.
All right. So you heard it here first from Sandy. All right. Well, thank you very much, Sandy. I appreciate you coming and sharing
Thank
your
you all.
experience with us. So next, I want to go, not physically, of course, but I wanted to talk to Geesey and Liz at the Phoenicia Library and the Morton Memorial Library. Morton in Pine Hill. We had two Mortons, right? So this is Morton in Pine Hill from Dutchess to Ulster. And I want to ask both Liz and Geesey, if y'all are available and ready to talk. Is this the first time that you all have worked on food scarcity and hunger in your community?
Well, hi, it's Liz. Um, Similar to Carol Donick at Kent, we had been part of this really great program last year with Hunger Solutions to give out lunches that had to be eaten in the building during the summer reading program. And at least at Phoenicia, and I think it might have been different at Pine Hill, we didn't find a lot of takers. So this year we were asked if we wanted to do the same thing, and we said, you know, our building is closed, and we both kind of leapt on another program, which is groceries, similar to Carol, you know, full of you know, egg, milk, potatoes, etc., and that's been much more popular for us.
Okay. Geesey, is this the first time that y'all were doing anything with food scarcity or hunger in your community?
No, we had, like Carol and Liz said, we had the the program where the kids would come to the library and eat their lunches here. And we worked together with the Pine Hill Community Center. They had their summer camp on Mondays and Fridays. So on these days, the kids would come over here and they would eat their lunch, and then we do something with them. So it was popular, but I don't think it really got to the people who mostly needed it. And also the restrictions were just so it was so strict, you know, the kids could only eat here, they couldn't take anything home. So, I mean, it helped them when they were here and they were eating something, but it wasn't like our program is this year. This year is much more helpful. And then Liz and I talked about it, that we would really want to be part of it again this year. And we reached out to the Food Bank of the Hudson Valley and said, can we be part of it? And obviously it needs to be in a different form. And they were then trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. And they came up with the grocery delivery, and that is great.
Okay, so you had, it sounds like you both, similar to Carol, you've had a lot more takers of the program when it's not the school lunch program where people have to consume the food at the library.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Liz, would you be able to tell me how your program actually works, the logistics from how you get the food to how people actually get the food from you?
Absolutely. It's really not too difficult to do. We do it slightly different, I think, than the other libraries. So we feed 7 families, so that's about 37, almost 40 people each week, and so for that you need you need about a room. So we decided we would give our kids room over to this, since we're just doing curbside. And you need at least 4 big tables to spread all the food out, because there's a lot of organization that needs to be done. We got a food drop-off every 3 weeks, so it's basically half a big truck comes to you. So you have to have that space. And for us, 2 things. It worked out best to have a single staff member to handle this, who's comfortable making up the weekly bags, which can be sort of overwhelming organizationally, trying to figure out how to put something that's balanced together. But she'd worked in the restaurants, and so she was really good at that. And we also do a delivery, because we felt that for our library it was going to be 2 things. It would be kind of disruptive of the curbside for the person who's doing curbside if they had to kind of suddenly, gather up perishables and pantry items for somebody who's coming in to get food while they're also trying to handle the curbside. So we have 1 day a week where our staff member goes and delivers to the families. And we have a very big service area. It's like 110 square miles. And transportation is a real issue for at least half of the people that we are bringing food to. So that's why I think this has been much more successful, because we're bringing the food to them.
Okay, cool. And Liz, I know you were on the phone. I put up the pictures that you had sent me, and it looks like you have at least a refrigerator, maybe a couple, that are packed with milk and eggs, and a table full of perishable stuff, like maybe potatoes in there, or maybe those are bananas.
Potatoes, carrots, bananas, pineapples, and even our freezer was stuffed with this thing. It's like eggs, but in a carton that's frozen. It's kind of like liquid eggs.
Oh.
And those were popular too.
Oh, cool. And so you said that your staff member in your space in the library is committed to this, doing it once a week. Is that right? Spending a day doing it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I mean, so the question is, how would we? I don't know what it would look like, or would we continue beyond this pandemic crisis, because it does take a lot of physical space, and our library is really small.
Yeah. That's definitely a consideration. Giese, would you be able to tell me about how it works at your library, and who's helping you out with that, and where your food comes from, and how folks actually get it?
Yeah. So we also get our food delivery from the Food Bank of the Hudson Valley. They come, I get the same delivery as Liz gets, or the same day. And so about every 3 weeks or so, we got a delivery. and mostly our families pick up here. I have a few families that get delivery. I have a volunteer who delivers once a week, and also I try to do it once a week that the families can pick up their food. They call or I email them, and then they come and pick it up. We don't have a refrigerator, so I don't have any milk or eggs, but I was able to get vouchers for Stewart's gas station grocery store for milk and eggs. So I give that to the families, and that also works really well for them. And yeah, I mean, our library is even smaller, so it is definitely getting really crowded. I'm planning on opening the building next week, and I'll just guess I have to tell people don't trip over the tomato sauce while you're browsing the collection. It's just the way it is. But you know, I mean, when people have been peeking in here and I say, well, sorry, it looks like a food pantry because that's what we are right now. And then everybody's like, oh yeah, that's great. And I love it. And so I don't think people will be upset. I mean, I think it's great to help the community. And yeah, it's not just a library. That's more than that.
Indeed, yeah, reimagining services. So Gisi, who handles all the food? Do you handle it all, or do you have volunteers help?
No, I have a volunteer. I have a person, she signed up to get groceries. She's a mom mom family with 4 children, and she asked if she could get groceries, and I said, sure, absolutely. And then she offered, like in exchange for that, to help me. And I was really, really grateful because she also comes about once a week or every other week and packs the bags for the families. And as she's a mom with kids, and so she has a good idea of, you know, what people need and what makes sense together. And it would just take too much time out of my day to get all that done. I mean, I certainly could do it, but I'm so, so grateful that she's here and does that. And she does a great job. So
That's pretty cool. And you know, as I understand it, there's no obligation to work in exchange for the food, right? This woman
yeah.
volunteered and she's doing it voluntarily, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I try to, you know, be very accommodating towards her and always tell, of course, you know, you have to first pick, so take whatever you want.
All right. And I think that you told me when we talked about this before that you've sort of tapped into a network of moms. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I always try to find out if there is anything that people specifically need, and then they tell me what they need, and I try to give it or pass it on to the food bank and then see if they can get it from me. And somehow somebody dropped off a box of really nice children's clothes, and so I try to find out if there's a family that could use them. And in conversation with them, I found out, well, we really are in need of shoes and this and that. So I, reached out to other people, and a friend of mine who's a mom who I knew has a daughter at maybe that age, which I thought maybe she has some stuff. And she reached out to other moms. So there's a whole group now that are collecting things, and a whole network that's been built now for the needs of the families.
That's pretty cool. And I think you were telling me that even just things they have that they don't need are, can find a home with other folks, right? Like clothes, old
Right.
clothes that don't fit kids anymore are still good enough, or, definitely wearable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I mean the thrift stores were closed, or a lot of them still are, and
Yeah.
so people really want to rehome their stuff. A lot of people have cleaned out stuff while they were home quarantining. So like, where are we gonna put all that stuff? So
Yeah.
it was good to make that connection and pass it on.
Yeah. So, what kind of reaction have you had, Gisi, from the community? You said you have some people peeking in and they think it's good. Is that generally what folks feel like?
Yeah, people are really thrilled, and they're just really happy that we do that and think it's great. And I got a lot of positive feedback, and um, some people donated some vegetables or also other stuff that they had extra. So and clothes and school supplies. I got a whole donation of school
Oh,
supplies.
wow.
So yeah, I mean it has been great.
Okay. Thank you. Liz, I wanted to ask you, do you think, have you had anybody ask, is this work that the library ought to be doing? Is this library work? Is this in your mission?
I mean, that's a question I've asked myself, but it's before we began, but absolutely not. No, it's very similar to Gizi. I think people have felt when their public library that they are part of or support or pay for is doing this, I think people tend to feel as if they themselves are helping feed families in the community. So it's been we haven't had that kind of an issue, but it's in a sense, I think that it is part of our role. I mean, Gizi and I live in a community with just 3,000 people. We are 25 miles from the nearest city, Kingston, and there just simply aren't other support organizations, plentiful in the area. And this really isn't something typical for our libraries to do, historically, but our mission to provide education and entertainment, always I think kind of rested on some sort of an unstated assumption that people were safe and well fed and had shelter, and it just, because of the pandemic and before, we felt that some basic needs weren't actually being met. And it's, especially in the summertime, it's hard for kids to, learn and read, if they and their family are hungry. So
Yeah.
I would argue it's kind of part of our mission, just not one that we had uncovered.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Gizi. I appreciate you all coming out and sharing the work that you've been doing. It's really great work, and it looks like a lot of work too. So, I'm sure your community is very happy that you're doing this work and helping them out. So I want to thank all our panelists.
I just wanted to say.
Oh, Gizi. All right, what?
Yeah, no, sorry. I just wanted to say one last thing, because I realized that the people who pick up the food are not members of the library or people who usually come to the library. And I think especially in the beginning, they were a little weary and who are these people? And I think it really, so I felt like maybe if we change a little the perception of, or for them that, oh, we don't belong there, we don't go to the library, to, oh, this is a place where we are being helped and there's no questions asked, I think then that's a really good service that we are providing, and just a different aspect of being a library. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we're definitely you're definitely reaching new people, right? Are these the same people that you were always seeing before, or is this that elusive non-user that we're always trying to get in touch with at the library?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I wanted to see if anybody has any questions. We have one question that came in the question box. You can put your question in the question box or the chat box. The question box works okay. But I do want to thank all our panelists for coming out today. This is really great work. And I know when I was the library director and when I worked at the library, it was always really helpful to see people who had done these things and to see the ways they had overcome things that I was struggling with. And they said, that's not a big deal. I do that. No big deal. Or, that was a big deal. And then this is how I found a way to go around that. Or to hell with all the things that are in my way. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. So if you have any questions, please pop them in the question box. And I just wanted to ask all our panelists, and I'll go in the order that we started out in. So I'm going to ask you, Rhiannon, are there any final thoughts that you wanted to share with folks before we move on, if they're thinking about doing this in their community?
I think you will be surprised. I know some people said they were new patrons or not regular patrons, but we're kind of finding the opposite. It's been almost 50-50 or 25-75 of our patrons, and there's some people that we knew were going to have an issue, and then there's some families that I had no idea. I saw them on a regular basis. I never would have guessed that they would either be in need of this service and be using it regularly. So it's not just getting new people into your library, but it's supporting the ones that are already there, which is great.
Wow. Thank you. All right, Carol, was there anything that you wanted folks to know about doing this or thinking about doing this in their community or their library?
Just that it was worthwhile. It wasn't that difficult. Our mission statement says something about helping people reach their full potential. And as was said before, it's hard for people to learn and grow if they're hungry. So I think that this goes along with it.
That's true. I know sometimes they say nobody can learn on an empty stomach. And that's what many of the people in our community are facing. And I think, you know, maybe we didn't realize it before, but here it is now more in front of us and we're working to address the need. Sandy, do you have any thoughts you wanted to share with folks?
No, just echoing what everybody else has said, and I just feel that our whole title is Morton Memorial Library and Community House, and I think that this brings everybody together, whether you're in need or whether you have something to offer. It just brings us all together and makes us all family, and it's just a continuation of that. So I'm all for it.
Great, great. And Liz and Geesey, Liz, is there anything that you wanted to share as we close out today?
I would say I will confess that I was kind of nervous and reluctant because when the idea was coming up, even though I felt like obviously we should do this, because I felt like we're in a crisis, I'm in a crisis, you know, the library's in a crisis. How can we take something new on? But I would urge people to pass through that barrier of anxiety around it, and it is so much easier than I imagined, and obviously very rewarding.
Great. Thank you. Geesey, anything you want to leave us with?
No, it's just everybody said everything, but I think as bad as this pandemic was, it also brought out the best in people, and you know, people were very helpful and very grateful also. So thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. So thank you all again. Thanks to all our panelists. You know, a round of applause, silent round of applause here. We did have one question that somebody asked, and they asked, how do you deal with expiration dates in your food pantry?
Yeah, we had one time stuff that was getting moldy, and I just threw that out. And the volunteer who packs the bags, she checks the expiration date, and then depending on the item, you know, I either get rid of it or give it back or give it out if it's really no big deal. It depends on it, but obviously I don't want to give stuff away that's going bad. But I didn't have many problems at all with it.
Okay.
We're dealing with mostly non-perishables, and they have never been around long enough to even consider what the expiration date would be.
Okay.
Everything is usually gone pretty quick.
Okay, cool. So I'm not seeing any other questions, and I'm just going to remind everybody that this is the first webinar in our Reimagining Library Services series, where we're looking at the work that people are doing now that COVID-19 has forced us into some situations and brought some things to light. So, you know, please sign up on our calendar if you haven't done so already. We have a couple of them coming up in October. We have innovative programming, where we're going to look at new programming that people are doing, tech tools, things that people are putting in place to help them reach their communities, and dealing with the digital divide, where we talk about libraries who are connecting people to the internet, which is more and more, you know, a necessity in our life and not just a luxury for looking at cool things. So again, you know, thank you to all our panelists, and thank you to everybody who came today. That's a wrap, and you know, we'll send you a follow-up webinar. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me, of course, and I'm sure that our panelists would also be happy to answer any questions about the programs that they have going on as well. So thank you again, everybody, and have a good day.
Thank you.